guys! Finally, this is week 20 of rebuilding my life and myself, most importantly, before my 30th birthday. So today I had quite an amazing Sunday because I did something I haven't done for a while, and I think that is always something super fun to do, which is skydiving. And truly I was trying to think on my way back home what was the subject that I was willing to talk to you about. But truly knowing that this kind of YouTube videos are truly for me to feel comfortable talking in front of the camera without a specific agenda, I think that first thing I want to be mentioning is one of the things and the reasons why I started focusing more on orientation is because I feel myself connected with the education sector. Okay, and one of the things I mentioned and the reasons I'm mentioning this is I was thinking on becoming a professor. I know that I mentioned this in previous videos, and I think that that's truly also what's connected me always with my mother. She's a teacher, and I think that that personality of mine, which is liking to learn new things and being able to explain them to others, I think that this is truly what I've always liked. And for me, I'm feeling quite comfortable giving back what I was able to get myself. And I always thought about becoming a professor one day, also mixing it with the business activity, the fact of being a businessman, as I've seen in the films a lot of time, which is someone being a professor sometimes in university with some specific classes or courses, and then handling my businesses on the side, which is my main business, and this is kind of the thing that I've always wanted to do. So the other thing that connected me with education is that I think that one day I will start a PhD. I think that I've always joked about it, but the idea behind it is that I want my children to call me Dr. Sanz, and I think that that's kind of a funny thing. Is it funny enough for you to be studying 3 or 4 years? I don't know. I think that I will have to find out, but why am I mentioning this is only because of one reason, which is the subject that I would love to choose if I had to start a PhD. First, PhDs are much more complicated than someone saying that he wants to start one. But if I was able to get into a professor or a subject that was related with sociology and the economics aspect of life, I think that I know for sure what subject will I choose, which is the generation aspect that connects entrepreneurial people with their families, background, etc. Why am I saying this? Because there's, for me, a big difference when you go into the world and you find people that are first, second, third, fourth, fifth generation, and there's a huge difference between what you are able to do in life, truly what are your chances of success, and also what kind of success are you able to have. This is an important one because you can be only putting it in money aspect, because I think that is interesting only because of the numbers. The other things are difficult to measure, I think, but there's a difference between an ambition of 1 billion and an ambition of 1 million. So this is totally correlated also with this generational aspect. How are you able to handle risk? Do you have enough knowledge in your family to be moving forward, or do you need to go and find more in terms of academic, mentoring, etc.? I think that this is so related one with the other that it's true that sometimes when we try to pitch the fact that people are poor or rich, and we mentioned that somebody was born in a nice family, I think that is important to track when and who in the family was the one or the grandmother at that time, uncle, grandfather, etc., who were the two people and the couple who made things great for the next generation. I think that seeing that precise moment gives you a lot of context about a lot of things. First, is it sector related, meaning is it someone who decided to become a doctor in the 1950 after the Second World War, and then he was the doctor of the village, and then he was able to buy properties because there was only one doctor in the village, and then his son was able to take back his business. The only thing that happened is that the city grew much more. And then this son decided to open a business, which was, I'm going to have a clinic where I'm going to be the doctor, but I'm going to be hiring nurses and some other people for me to be generating much more. And then the grandson decided to take this clinic that was only in one city and then expand it and use the name of the grandfather and the clinic that his grandfather at the time, and then replicated it in other cities. This is kind of an example truly showing that depending on the generation that decided to open a business or be successful, and you can be successful working as an employee, that be sure of it. You can be working for Philips at a time and then generating a lot of income. You can be a dentist, which is not the best example because you can be a dentist working in a company, or you can be a dentist yourself, but get the picture of what I'm mentioning. I think that this is something that we need to understand, because the reality is, if you are coming from a second generation, it's not only that you have much more advantages, but it's also that you can lose something that you have. And for a first generation, it's complicated. In my case, I'm first generation, meaning my family, in my concept of how do you rank and how can you move from one generation to another one, my family didn't improve the living of my sister and I, which is the next generation. If someone, a layer in the family, is able to improve the life of the layer next to it, so after it, then I think that you are improving a generation, and then you can be called second generation because your family, your father and mother were the ones who improved your life. But you cannot be called third generation because their and your grandfather and their grandmother didn't do this for them. And I think that that's truly important, because there's a lot of concepts and a lot of different ways to explain life only by looking at this. And a lot of time is not, as I was mentioning, related to wealth, which is how much money do you have, is related with the education you have at home, the things you are able to see and other people don't, the things that you understand as common when for a lot of people are exceptionals. I think that truly is a totally different vision of the world, and this is why also is complicated to explain how the world could be seen by a second generation, and a second generation trying to explain how the world works to a first generation will always be something really complicated, because even though you have enough empathy, which is kind of a superpower, you must know that there are really a few people having empathy in this world. Their way of exchanging and talking one with the other, I think that is totally different, and they won't see the same things. Doesn't matter how much time they do spend together talking about it. And this is kind of what I see that happens a lot on how people from second generations make friends, which maybe is a coincidence, but a lot of times you see second generation making friends with second generations, third and fourth. But a person from a second generation being friend with a first is much more complicated, because their problems, their life are going to be much different. Let me give you an example. My friends are second generation, even one of them is not willing to accept this, but it's second generation because his family improved his life and the one of his brother. So that's the definition of second generation. And doesn't mean that their family build a business. No, it only means that they gather wealth together for the next generation to be covered and have less risk than somebody else. And the problem and the conversations I was having with him, and this is why I see the generational aspect being much more important than trying to compare this with wealth or your class, which would be, are you class, medium class, high class, meaning the rich sphere, etc. I think that that's truly not profound enough, and it doesn't go in depth, which is, if I told you that, for example, my friend told me that I'm not low class, I'm medium class. And his way of saying this is, your way of living is not associated to one of someone who's low class. Is he right? I think that he has a point. But if I was mentioning to him that he's second generation and I'm not, he will have to agree. Why? Because the moment his families were able to gather wealth to buy different properties that will at a specific moment be an heritage for him or his brother or whatever. And the fact that if he has a problem at a specific time, he has a perception of risk which is lower than the one that I could have. Because, for example, in my family, there's no property at all. This is one of the challenges that I do have, which is I need to build as a first generation, together with my sister, the layer of economical sustainability, not only for ourselves, but to try to cover our families, which in my case is taking care of my mother. This is kind of a pivoting way of seeing things. And if I had to take the time to explain to someone how for him or for her is better to see life, is first ask yourself, which generation are you? Second, see which generation are your friends, from which generation are they coming from? And then you will understand a lot of things about discussions that you have, friends that you lost, people you understand better with each other. There's a where it's kind of complicated to be, and this is kind of a discussion that you can have with a lot of friends, which is, no, I want to fly here and spend some time here in Dubai because I can't be doing this, whatever, etc., etc. I don't have the flexibility and the freedom to do that. Maybe if I was earning a salary, I will have the capacities to do it, but I don't have the same vision they could have about flying, because a lot of times their economies are not mine. Meaning, if they take the risk of not having a salary, they could go back to live with their family, they could rent a property, they have properties to live without having to pay rent, etc., etc., etc. I think that that's really different from understanding wealth, because it's true that the most generations you have, the most close you are with becoming a rich class. Another of my best friends, for me, is second generation, but even if he's not third or fourth, their family did well enough for him not to be medium class. Even though we can discuss about this, because his way of living, and as I was mentioning before, can be similar to the one we mentioned, because we are friends and we were living the same life, but the way to pursue a dream, the way of having to challenge yourself towards a more goal because you are obliged to, because when I talk with my sister about it, is not an option for us. We cannot relax, not even 1 month, 3 months, whatever, because we know that we have nothing to go back to, or we have no mattress of economical mattress where we could relax for a bit. And I think that that's a game changer, because it will explain a lot of frustration that first generations, I'm talking about me now, but I'm talking about a lot of people who are in the same position, trying to build something by themselves because their families weren't able to do so. Or maybe you're a second generation that's so ambitious that you want to build much more than your family did before. And that can also be the case. That's the reason why I'm comparing a second trying to build a third generation, meaning I'm second generation, my family did well, and I'm trying to make sure that my sons will do well, or at least maybe better than I did. They are going to become third generations at the end. I think that the calculations are correct, easy to understand. If you try to compare a second generation trying to build a third one, or a first generation trying to build the first generation of the family, which will be, in my case, my sister and I taking care of ourselves, taking care of our family, meaning our mother, and then having to build, which will be second generation, because first we need to build ours, which is coming from 0 to 1. This is kind of the complicated thing, which is to establish the first generation and then be creating second. I think that there's really few people in the world who could be doing this kind of jump, which is not only establishing yours and becoming first generation, but making sure that your sons will be living maybe better than the one you had. And I think that, of course, the challenge be comparable, but the mediums, the resources, the conditions, and the capacities that a second generation building a third one has will never be comparable to a first generation. Never. And this is kind of a pain point whenever when people try to remind you where are you coming from. I think that this is an important message that I want to be giving. Be really observing and watching that move close to you, because it will help you a lot, not only get frustrated because you are jealous of them. This is not the point of why I'm this, but is to better understand what things could you be copying and what things you shouldn't be copying. And this is important because if I'm trying to imitate the risk of someone that is second generation or third generation, I shouldn't be doing that, because maybe I think that this is a factor that was a success for them, but it was a factor inside a lot of conditions that were close to this one. So maybe you try to replicate this at your own level and it doesn't work. But the problem is that for you, the fall down is going to be much more complicated than for them, because they could take these resources where they failed and generate a new one. But in your case, you couldn't. So this is kind of the thing where you are playing some moves. You should be comparing with the people on your same level. And if you are a first generation trying to build something for yourself, you can get some inspiration about second, third, fourth, etc. But you shouldn't be comparing yourself, because you will never match. And this is what I was mentioning at this time. You will never match their experience of life, their way of seeing the world. And at the end, you're only going to be a chaser of something that really doesn't match your experience. So at the end, this message is only for you to be coming back to your roots, understanding really, truly, which game are you playing, and also where are you starting the game you are playing, at what time, what level, whatever. And for you to know that if you succeed, it has much to be doing it with less resources, someone who has more. And that will always be the case. So important, if you are first generation, keep pushing, don't compare yourself, try to understand the game that's being played. And most importantly, I will say, let me think, because this one I think that came to my mind and I think that I need to come get it back. I forgot what I was about to mention. But yes, in any case, I think that is important for us to put ourselves in a position where we understand that the moves we are doing sometimes are much more complicated than somebody else's. And it has more merit, but it's also much more complicated. And this could lead to a lot of frustration. So we need to understand that we are superheroes if you are first generation and tries to make it happen. A lot of people will also say that being a second generation or a third one has a disadvantage, which is you could lose what you have, and that's totally true. So that's the reason why I'm mentioning that there's not a better or worse position. This is not the debate. It is truly about mentioning something that if I had the chance to study as a PhD candidate, I would love to do, because I think that it changes a lot the way we see the world. So it's not about only for who's harder, which I mentioned already will always be for generation because of the resources. There's some other challenges for second and third, family issues, problems about keeping the money, people trying to play or be friends with you only because of the interest. I think that there's some difficulties that these generations need to live, which is making socially the thing more complicated. But I will always say that it's easier to build with Legos than having to build the Legos you want to build with. So that will be, I think, the sentence that I will keep you with. Guys, next week is week 21. I think that this week has been kind of complicated personally, mentally. It's really frustrating to be willing to move forward faster and not being able to. I need to reconnect. It has been really complicated this week, so I cannot give you any advice personally. The challenge for next week is to really find some calm, because I think that I'm rushing and putting myself in a lot of pressure every day just because I set a deadline that might not be realistic. I'm playing the startup game, so I need to really be pushing as far as I can. But it's true that maybe setting that I want to be raising in March, April, maybe is unrealistic. I don't know. And this is kind of the complicated thing where you will never know. And maybe I'm pushing myself to talk about VCs, raising, etc. And I'm losing focus on why. But it's true that it's complicated also for me because I'm rushing against this stress and the runaway of having each or whatever month left of cash, and I have until March. So at the end, I also understand why I'm so pushy and so demanding on things to be happening, because I see Christmas really coming close. I see schools where I wanted to move going much slower than I expected. For me, it's super frustrating because I put myself in the shoes of a father already, and be having these kind of challenges with the schools. I think that it breaks my mind to be having people going so slow, but this is kind of how the game is being played, so I need to play it like this. But is again the reason why I'm mentioning that, whether you have the success, the resources, the cash to be doing publicity marketing, to attack the B2C directly with a lot of resources, or if you try to build your reputation by working with B2B, one of the things that you could be confronting yourself is this kind of timeline. Meaning, I can maybe do something in July next year, meaning from I will need 12 months to be building something solid. Is it a problem for me? Economically, yes. Is it a problem in terms of timing? No, because truly I don't want to rush this. I think that I have an angle. The only thing I need to be is delivering features and a product that is fucking amazing. This is truly what I'm willing to do, and this is where it's getting me a lot frustrated a lot, because I have already the vision and the problems put together, and I only need to make the machine work. I feel that as Dr. Frankenstein tried to build Frankenstein, and I think that that's truly the challenge I'm at. Things will have to move forward for sure, and they will be unlocking some new things soon. I get this feeling. The only thing that is making me is have like sometimes I want to cry, because it's truly overwhelming not to be able to do what you think you are capable of. Meaning, I will capable of be living in London right now, hiring a team, managing €1 million or €2 million of VC funds that I got, and seeing the company and much pushier with schools. If it doesn't work with the ones of my country, go to a new country, work with the ones that in my country that were interesting, try to leverage other ones. I think that whenever you have resources, your strategy change a lot. So does it mean that I'm doing something wrong? No, I think that I'm doing the best I can with the resources that I have right now. I wish things will move, we're moving faster for me also to be pushing myself towards a limit which is not 0 to 1, which is what I'm doing right now. Meaning, I need to be validating the product, making sure that the schools and the students are liking it, making sure that the product is not a one-off, which is kind of the complicated aspect of it. But guys, I think that everything has a reason of happening. So I cannot make magic more than really falling in love with the subject, feeling that I'm the one capable of building this, and this feeling is not going away. The much more I go into this subject, the much I feel that I'm truly connected with the problem and the outcome and how this could be changing lives, and I cannot take it out of my mind. I'm living with Dreamly, the speech, and anything surrounding me. Every conversation I get is a validation on itself about someone saying that the idea is great, that would be amazing, and that they are surprised, and it's true that nobody think of it as I'm doing before. Is it a risk for me because maybe I'm building something that wasn't built before? Yes, the answer will always be yes. But I think that it's a matter of time. Maybe this works in year 3. I don't have a clue. But if it works in year 3, I could be changing lives in year 3. So for me, it will be the most exciting time and could be moving forward too. And I don't mind when this happens. I only know that this is kind of the thing that I need to be doing, and that's my mission in life. And that gets me excited and also emotional. So guys, thanks a lot. It's almost half of the challenge. I think that is beautiful to say, and as I was mentioning, to be seeing these videos later on. This video is super long. I know that nobody will be sticking in minute 28, but if you did, thanks a lot. And if you didn't, hope these videos will at one moment become famous, and even if 100 people watch them, I will be super happy, because I think that it can be really helpful for a lot of people. Coming to these conclusions that I had to come myself against a lot of trouble, and if I can put it plain for you to be not having to rush and get the same mistakes that I did and get hurt by them, I think that I will be super happy. So that's kind of my mission in life. So try to correct the wrongs that I know existing, and for other people to be able to avoid them. Guys, take care. Thanks a lot, and talk really soon. Bye bye.